is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
In the United States, conservative figure Charlie Kirk, shot dead in Utah, is set to receive the Medal of Freedom. His death stirs debate far beyond America's borders. On the anniversary of 9/11, Donald Trump delivers a strong message at the Pentagon, a warning set to those who threaten America. A diplomatic scandal. Britain's ambassador to Washington, Mandelson out, ousted over his controversial ties to Jeffrey Epstein. The fallout reaches global politics. In Kyiv, Europe shows solidarity. The Zelensky stub meet signals a stronger front against Russia. In Brazil, a president falls. Jair Bolsonaro jailed for attempting to overturn democracy. A reminder of how fragile political systems can be, even in the strongest nations. A fresh wave of Myanmar unrest. The military junta has scrapped elections in areas controlled by rebels, deepening the country's political crisis. Chaos on the streets and behind bars. More than 15,000 prisoners at large after a massive jailbreak. Another warning of instability across Asia. I'm Franco Baranda. Newsline World starts now. Kuwait's foreign minister has a strong warning after Israel's recent strike in Qatar, declaring that an attack on one Gulf state is an attack on all. Fatima Nalzil reports.
Foreign Minister Ali Abdullah Al Yahya said the Israeli strike on Doha was a criminal act that targeted not only Qatar but the unity of the Gulf Cooperation Council. Al Yahya was speaking in Sochi at the 8th Joint Ministerial Meeting of GCC and Russia.
اسمحوا لي أصحاب المعالي والسعادة قبل أن أبتدئ كلمتي الرسمية أود في اجتماعنا هذا أن أجدد العهد بالركائز التي أصلها ميثاق منظومة مجلس التعاون لدول الخليج العربية بعقيدة راسخة شيدة الكيان الواحد والمصير المشترك. فإن العدوان على أي دولة من دول يعد اعتداء على دول المجلس كافة.
Al Yahya also highlighted Gaza, commending Moscow's push for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. The remarks follow Israel's strike on Hamas leadership in Qatar, which killed 5. The Hamas negotiators, reportedly weighing a U.S. ceasefire proposal, survived. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu later demanded Doha expel Hamas members or hand them over.
And I say to Qatar and all nations who harbor terrorists, you either expel them or you bring them to justice. Because if you don't, we will.
Netanyahu also lashed out at global criticism, saying those who condemned Israel should be ashamed. Qatar in return condemned the strike as a violation of sovereignty. Its cabinet has since formed legal teams to pursue action against Israel and review national security measures. Reporting, this has been Fatima Nozil, SMNI News.
Nepal is having one of the largest jailbreaks in its history after reports revealed more than 15,000 inmates escaped from prisons nationwide during violent anti-corruption protests this week. Almar Forzuelo for the details.
Authorities said protesters stormed over 24 prisons on Tuesday and Wednesday, setting buildings on fire and forcing open gates. At least 25 facilities were hit, with thousands of convicts and detainees flooding into the streets. Police confirmed that many of the fugitives were serving sentences for serious crimes, including murder, rape, abduction, and human trafficking. The worst violence was reported at the Bangkok Juvenile Reform Center, where police opened fire as protesters tried to seize weapons from guards. 5 inmates were killed and 122 children fled from the facility. Breakouts were widespread. In the Kathmandu Valley alone, 3,300 inmates escaped from the central jail in Sundara and 1,400 from Naku prison in Lalitpur. In Gandaki province, Cascade District Prison lost 773 inmates, including several foreign nationals. In Sunsari's Jumka prison, 1,575 escaped before 220 were recaptured or surrendered. Smaller jails were also overwhelmed. Chitwan reported 700 escapes, Kapilvastu 459, Kailali 612, and Kanchanpur 478. In Parbat, 86 of 99 inmates broke free. In Sinduli, fires destroyed the main gate and around 500 inmates fled. The Department of Prison Management said final numbers are still being compiled. Not all fugitives have stayed on the run. In Jumla, 4 escapees returned, citing short remaining sentences. In Kailali, 6 were arrested. In Tikapur, around 30 surrendered voluntarily. Officials have issued public notices warning escapees to come back or face tougher action. The jailbreaks coincided with the so-called Gen Z protests, which also saw attacks on municipal and political party offices. The death toll from the unrest in the Kathmandu Valley has climbed to 31, according to Tribhuvan University Teaching Hospital. Officials said 25 bodies have been identified, while 6 remain unclaimed. Curfews were imposed in several districts, though some restrictions have since been eased. The Nepal army has taken charge of security nationwide. As the crisis deepens, the name of former Supreme Court Chief Justice Sushila Karki has surfaced as a possible interim leader to steer the country towards stability. Reporting for Newsline World, Almar Forsuelo, SMNA News.
Myanmar's election commission says December voting will be suspended in areas fully controlled by armed groups as the military-backed government presses ahead with plans for national elections. Paul Montibon reports.
In Myanmar, the military-led government is pressing ahead with December elections, but officials now say some regions will be left out. At a press conference in Nai Pi Thao, Commission official Yu Kin Maung U said the first phase of polling is set for December 28 in 102 townships, but areas under the complete control of armed groups will be excluded, with further announcements still to come. Results are expected by the end of January 2026, with by-elections to follow in partially contested areas. The vote will use a proportional representation system. Myanmar has been gripped by civil war since the 2021 military coup that ousted the elected government of Aung San Suu Kyi. Large parts of the country are now controlled by ethnic armed groups and pro-democracy militias, many of whom have vowed to disrupt elections in their regions. Currently, only 6 parties remain registered to compete. Critics dismiss the process as a sham, accusing the junta of staging the vote to legitimize its rules. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Paul Montibon, SMNA News.
Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko has voiced strong support for Donald Trump's role in the Ukraine crisis, saying his country's main task is to stand by the U.S. president and help him establish peace. Erika Rio for the details.
In a meeting held in Minsk, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko told U.S. Special Envoy John Coley that his task is to help U.S. President Donald Trump bring peace. He argued that no single leader, not even Trump, can solve the crisis alone and that cooperation is needed. Lukashenko also pushed back on criticism over U.S. detainees in Belarus, insisting the country has no need for political prisoners and saying only those linked to the 2020 unrest remain in custody. Coley, meanwhile, welcomed the talks, stressing that both leaders are focused on building common ground rather than differences. In a symbolic gesture, Coley handed Lukashenko White House cufflinks from Trump and relayed Trump's desire to reopen the U.S. Embassy in Minsk. Washington has also agreed to lift sanctions on Belarus national airline Belavia.
The meeting between Lukashenko and Kolle lasted for 5 hours. Earlier, Trump described Lukashenko as a strong leader and respected man after Belarus released 16 American detainees. The two spoke by phone on August 15. Erica Rio, your Global Citizen correspondent reporting for Newsline World.
Coming up, in the United States, conservative figure Charlie Kirk, shot dead in Utah, is set to receive the Medal of Freedom. His death stirs debate far beyond America's borders. A diplomatic scandal. Britain's ambassador to Washington, Mandelson out, ousted over his controversial ties to Jeffrey Epstein. The fallout reaches global politics. And in Brazil, a president falls. Jair Bolsonaro jailed for attempting to overturn democracy, a reminder of how fragile political systems can be even in the strongest nations. Newsline World will be back after the break.
Maging ligtas, maging handa. Narito ang ilang paalala kung sakaling tumama ang lindol. Maghanda ng emergency kits na may lamang flashlight, pito, first aid kit, tubig at pagkain. Alamin ang emergency exits sa inyong bahay, paaralan o opisina. Habang lumilindol, magtago sa ilalim ng matibay na lamesa upang maprotektahan ang sarili sa mga nahuhulog na bagay. Lumayo sa mga bintana at mabibigat na gamit na maaaring mahulog. Kung ikaw ay nasa labas, lumayo sa mga gusali, puno o poste na maaaring matumba. Kung ikaw ay nagmamaneho, itabi at ihinto ang sasakyan at lumabas. Pagkatapos ng lindol, gamitin ang hagdan sa paglabas ng gusali at huwag gumamit ng elevator. Maging alerto sa aftershocks at manatili sa open space kung kinakailangan. Maging ligtas at maging handa sa anumang sakuna. Ang paalalang ito ay hatid sa inyo ng SMNI.
Sa kabila ng mga mas modernong kaalaman at teknolohiya, nananatiling matindi ang banta ng HIV sa Pilipinas. Pero gaano nga ba kalala ang sitwasyon? Ang HIV o Human Immunodeficiency Virus ay isang sakit na sumisira sa immune system ng katawan. Ngunit tandaan, hindi ito nakukuha sa simpleng pakikisalamuha. Hindi mo agad mararamdaman, pero unti-unti nitong pinapahina ang katawan. At kapag hindi naagapan, humahantong ito sa AIDS, ang huling yugto na impeksyon, kung saan halos wala ng panlaban ng katawan laban sa sakit. Patuloy na dumadami ang kaso ng sakit na ito sa Pilipinas. Isang nakababahalang pagtaas. Umabot na sa 500% ang itinaas ng HIV cases sa mga kabataang edad 15 hanggang 25. Ayon mismo sa Department of Health, 56 na bagong kaso ang naitatala kada araw sa bansa mula Enero hanggang Marso 2025. At ang pinakamatinding apektado, ang kalalakihan at kabataang Pilipino. Dahil dito, ang Pilipinas na ngayon ang may pinakamataas na bilang ng bagong kaso ng HIV sa buong Western Pacific region. Isang indikasyon ng lumulubahang sitwasyon, kaya nananawagan ng Department of Health gawing opisyal at urgent ang laban sa HIV sa pamamagitan ng isang Public Health Emergency Declaration. Kalalakihan ng pangunahing apektado, 95% ng bagong kaso ay lalaki, mahigit 1/4 ay kabataang nasa edad 15 hanggang 24. Habang wala pang deklarasyon, patuloy ang DOH sa mga sumusunod na hakbang: HIV testing, libreng gamot, self-test kits, at pakikipagtulungan sa DepEd para sa edukasyon sa mga paaralan. Isinulong rin ng DOH ang online patient appointment system para sa HIV patients. Layunin nitong gawing mas madali at mas personal ang pag-access sa libreng gamutan at konsultasyon. Ayon sa schedule ng pasyente, ang HIV ay hindi tulad ng flu. Hindi ito basta naipapasa sa hangin. Ito ay naipapasa sa pamamagitan ng personal na desisyon. Kailangan din nating pagtuunan ng pansin ang ugali, disiplina, at personal na responsibilidad. Isang paalala, mula sa SMNI.
U.S. President Donald Trump is honoring slain activist Charlie Kirk as a giant of his generation and pledging to award him the Presidential Medal of Freedom. But moments of silence in his memory have sparked clashes in Washington and Europe, highlighting divisions over his legacy. This report from Val Divina Gracia.
U.S. President Donald Trump is paying tribute to slain conservative activist Charlie Kirk, describing him as a giant of his generation. During public remarks, President Trump expressed grief over Kirk's assassination, calling him a champion of liberty and an inspiration to millions, especially young people.
Charlie was a giant of his generation, a champion of liberty, and an inspiration to millions and millions of people. Our prayers are with his wonderful wife, Eric, and his beautiful children. We miss him greatly, yet I have no doubt that Charlie's voice and the courage he put into the hearts of countless people, especially young people, will live on.
Trump went on to announce that Kirk will be awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom posthumously, saying details of the ceremony will be released soon. Meanwhile, a moment of silence for slain conservative activist Charlie Kirk has sparked heated clashes in both Washington and Strasbourg. In the U.S. House of Representatives, tensions flared when Republican Lauren Boebert urged prayers for Kirk to be spoken aloud, arguing that silent prayers get silent results. Democrats shouted back, forcing Speaker Mike Johnson to call for order. The chamber had just paused to honor Kirk, who was shot and killed Wednesday during a university event in Utah. The 31-year-old activist was taking a question in gun violence when a gunman opened fire before 3,000 people. Kirk was rushed to hospital, where he later died. Authorities are still searching for the shooter. In Strasbourg, Swedish member of the European Parliament Charlie Wimmers also called for a minute of silence, saying Kirk's murder had shocked the world. But Vice President Katerina Barley quickly rejected the request, saying such tributes can only be held at the opening of sessions. The decision triggered uproar among conservative lawmakers who banged their desks in protest. Kirk was a founder of Turning Point USA and a major conservative voice online with more than 20 million followers. His Utah event was the first stop on his American comeback tour, which had planned appearance at universities across the country. Funeral arrangements have yet to be announced as tributes continue to pour in worldwide. Reporting for Newsline World, this is Val Divina Gracia, SMNI News.
U.S. authorities have released a new video of the suspect in the Charlie Kirk assassination, showing him fleeing the scene. Officials also warned the public against spreading misinformation. In a press conference, the FBI published footage of the alleged gunman running across a rooftop moments after firing the fatal shot. The person then jumped down before running across a lawn and across the street. Investigators say the suspect wore sunglasses, Converse sneakers, and a distinctive black t-shirt with an American flag and eagle design. Utah's Public Safety Commissioner Bo Mason also displayed enhanced photos of the suspect, adding that public tips are now guiding investigators toward new leads. More than 7,000 tips have been received, the largest number since the Boston Marathon bombing in 2013. According to Governor Spencer Cox. He also claimed that there are foreign adversaries encouraging violence by way of bots and other forms of social media. Officials say a tremendous amount of forensic evidence is being processed, with prosecutors preparing a possible death penalty case. Meanwhile, Charlie Kirk's casket arrived in Phoenix, Arizona aboard Air Force Two. Vice President J.D. Vance was on board the flight from Salt Lake City alongside members of Kirk's family. President Donald Trump announced Kirk will be awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Lawmakers from both parties have condemned the attack, calling it an assault on America's democracy. Britain's ambassador to the United States, Peter Mandelson, has been dismissed over his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Joy Tabanao for the details.
The Foreign Office confirmed Britain's ambassador to the United States, Peter Mandelson, was recalled after newly revealed emails showed he supported Epstein even after his 2008 conviction in Florida. The emails also suggested Mandelson believed Epstein's first conviction was wrongful. The dismissal came just a day after Prime Minister Keir Starmer told Parliament that Mandelson had his full confidence. The scandal deepened when U.S. lawmakers released Epstein's so-called birthday book from 2003, containing a handwritten note in which Mandelson described Epstein as my best pal. Bloomberg later published emails showing Mandelson offered Epstein advice, citing Sun Tzu Art of War. In a letter to embassy staff, Mandelson called the ambassadorship the privilege of my life, but said he had no alternative but to accept Starmer's decision. He added that he felt utterly awful about his past association with Epstein and the plight of Epstein's victims. Meanwhile, James Roscoe, deputy head of mission in Washington since July 2022, has been appointed interim ambassador. Mandelson, long known as Labour's Prince of Darkness, has now been forced out of 3 senior government roles over separate scandals. Joy Tabanao, your citizen correspondent reporting for Newsline World.
Brazil's Supreme Court has voted to convict former President Jair Bolsonaro, finding him guilty of trying to overturn the 2022 election and remove President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Jane Cognita has more.
Brazil's Supreme Court ruled ex-President Jair Bolsonaro would spend nearly 3 decades behind bars. The ruling came Thursday, local time, after Judge Carmen Lucia delivered her statement accusing Bolsonaro of leading a criminal organization that sought to violently abolish the democratic rule of law. Bolsonaro is now the first former Brazilian president convicted of an attack on democracy. The 5-judge panel sentenced him to 27 years and 3 months in prison, with 4 votes in favor of conviction, 1 dissent, and 1 pending. The charges include attempted coup d'etat, attempted violent abolition of the democratic rule of law, armed criminal organization, and damage to public property and heritage.
Jair Messias Bolsonaro, pela prática desses crimes, liderar organização criminosa, esta é a acusação feita, o eixo diferencial de ser o líder da organização, tentativa de abolição violenta do Estado Democrático de Direito, tentativa de golpe de Estado e dano.
Judge Lucia stressed that authoritarianism poses a threat not only in Brazil but worldwide, calling Bolsonaro's role in the plot direct and effective.
Em nenhum lugar do mundo, e menos ainda aqui, não se tem imunidade absoluta contra o vírus do autoritarismo que se insinua insidioso, destilando seu veneno a contaminar liberdades e direitos humanos.
Bolsonaro had previously been disqualified from running for office until 2030, but this conviction adds the heaviest penalty yet against the far-right leader. This has been Jane Cognita, your global citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
After the break, on the anniversary of 9/11, Donald Trump delivers a strong message at the Pentagon, a warning set to those who threaten America. In Kiev, Europe shows solidarity. The Zelensky stub meet signals a stronger front against Russia. Don't go away. More news when we come back.
Sa tuwing bumabaha, hindi lang seguridad ang nalalagay sa alanganin, pati na rin ang kalusugan. Isa sa mga bantang dapat iwasan, ang leptospirosis. Ano nga ba ito? Ito ay isang sakit na dulot ng bakterya na tinatawag na leptospira. Nakukuha ito sa pamamagitan ng contact sa ihi ng mga hayop na may leptospira tulad ng mga daga. Pwede itong makuha sa pagsulong sa baha o pag-inom ng kontaminadong tubig. Nakakapasok ito sa katawan sa pamamagitan ng mga sugat, mata, ilong o bibig. Ang mga sintomas nito ay lagnat, mapulang mata, hirap umihi, masakit na tiyan, masakit na kalamnan, at masakit na ulo. Paano nga ba maiiwasan ang leptospirosis? Ugaliin ang tamang pagtatapon ng basura dahil ang mga maruruming lugar ang kadalasang pinupuntahan ng dagang may dalang leptospirosis. Iwasang lumusong, maglaro o lumangoy sa baha, lalo na kapag may sugat. Gumamit ng bota at gloves kung hindi maiiwasang lumusong sa tubig baha. Sumpuin ang mga daga sa bahay at panatilihin ang kalinisan sa komunidad. Hugasan ng malinis na tubig at sabon ang mga paa matapos lumusong sa baha. Sa kalinisan ng bawat isa, nakasalalay ang kaligtasan ng buong komunidad. Ang paalalang ito ay hatid sa inyo ng SMNI.
The Kremlin says a phone call between Presidents Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump could be set up quickly, though no date has been agreed yet. This report. Speaking in Moscow, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov confirmed that while no arrangements are in place, channels remain open for a direct conversation between the two leaders.
Пока нету никаких конкретных договоренностей о дате проведения телефонного контакта, но еще раз повторяю, при необходимости такой разговор может быть весьма и весьма оперативно согласован. Все каналы для этого имеются.
President Trump had said earlier he may speak with Putin in the coming days. Peskov also defended Russia's upcoming Zapad 2025 military exercises with Belarus, pushing back on criticism for Poland's prime minister, who labeled the drills very aggressive.
Они не нацелены против кого-то. Речь идет о продолжении военного сотрудничества и отработки взаимодействия между двумя стратегическими союзниками. Вот, поэтому будем дальше продолжать эту нашу линию, которая абсолютно не является ни для кого секретом, всем хорошо известна. И еще раз повторяю, все эти действия не имеют направленности против каких-то третьих стран.
Conducted every 4 years, the Zapad drills are among the largest joint military exercises held by Russia and Belarus, regularly drawing criticism from NATO members on Europe's eastern flank. Finland's president traveled to Kyiv, meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as the war with Russia grinds on. Finland's President Alexander Stubb has made a symbolic visit to Ukraine, arriving in Kyiv to meet Zelensky, pay respects to fallen soldiers, and discuss security and European integration. Stubb arrived by train and was greeted by top presidential aide Andriy Yermak before joining Zelensky at the Wall of Remembrance, where the two honored fallen Ukrainian soldiers. Yermak said the leaders discussed European integration, infrastructure projects, and ways to tighten sanctions on Moscow. Stubb, however, underscored that long-term security guarantees can only follow a peace agreement. Moscow has repeatedly said it's open to talks, but raised doubts over Zelensky's legitimacy after his term expired in May without elections under martial law. The visit comes on the heels of a Paris meeting of the so-called Coalition of the Willing. French President Emmanuel Macron said most members are ready to provide military assistance, though it remains unclear how far that commitment goes or what role the United States will ultimately play. U.S. President Donald Trump issued a stern warning to America's enemies at the Pentagon 9/11 commemoration, pledging relentless retaliation while honoring the thousands of lives lost in the terror attacks. Michael Olas has more on this.
At the Pentagon, President Donald Trump marked the 9/11 anniversary with a forceful message to America's adversaries. He declared, and I quote, "If you attack the United States, of America, we will hunt you down and we will find you.
The annual ceremony honors nearly 3,000 lives lost during the 2001 terror attacks. Similar commemorations were also held in the New York City and Shanksville, Pennsylvania. On that day, hijacked planes struck the Twin Towers and the Pentagon, while the fourth, believed to be targeting the U.S. Capitol, crashed in Pennsylvania after passengers fought back. Speaking before military personnel and officials, Trump underscored America's strength and resilience.
In the years that followed, America's warriors avenged our fallen and sent an unmistakable message to every enemy around the world. If you attack the United States of America, we will hunt you down and we will find you. Go all over this sometimes magnificent earth. We will crush you without mercy and we will triumph without question. That's why we named the former Department of Defense the Department of War. It will be different. We won the First World War. We won the Second World War. We won everything before that and in between. And then we decided to change the name. Well, now we have it back to where we all want it. You will fail and America will win, win, win. The enemy will always fail.
Trump also referenced the renaming of the former Department of Defense, symbolizing what is described as America's renewed resolve in safeguarding national security and winning conflicts, past and present. The speech blended a message of deterrence to potential adversaries with a solemn tribute to the bravery of the first responders, service members, and civilians affected by the 9/11 attacks.
From the Pentagon, this is Michael Olas, your global citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
The Philippines Bureau of Internal Revenue says it's nearing completion of a tax audit into spouses Pacifico and Sara Diskaya, implicated in alleged deficiencies tied to questionable flood control projects. The BIR also confirms it has opened a separate investigation into public works officials who may be linked to contractors under scrutiny. President Catarong files this report.
The Bureau of Internal Revenue has launched a detailed tax fraud audit targeting the top 15 government contractors involved in flood control projects. BIR Commissioner Romeo Lumagi Jr. says the audit is part of the government's intensified campaign against tax evasion and corruption involving public funds. Regarding the case of spouses Pacifico and Sara Diskaya, Lumagi stated that the audit of their records is already nearing its conclusion. The couple was implicated in tax deficiencies revealed during congressional hearings. Lumagi emphasized that the audit on the couple began even before the controversy gained public attention, citing an earlier complaint against them and their companies as the basis for the investigation.
So, tinitingnan natin at malapit na rin tayong matapos sa sinasagawa nating audit sa kanila. Kasalukuyan, nakikipag-ugnayan kami sa iba't ibang ahensya ng pamahalaan upang agad matapos itong aming audit.
The commissioner also stressed that the BIR must ensure the accuracy and completeness of its findings before filing any legal case.
So, we have to make sure lang na kumpleto ito para talagang kung ano yung tax liabilities nila at kung ano yung potential criminal liability nila ay maisampa natin altogether.
The commissioner also revealed that more companies are expected to be added to the list of entities to undergo tax fraud audit, following the initial group of 15 government contractors currently under investigation. He added that the agency is not only focusing on the main contractors, but is also expanding the scope of the audit to include joint venture partners and other related entities possibly involved in the anomalies. Meanwhile, the BIR confirmed that it has also started investigating several officials of the Department of Public Works and Highways who allegedly managed billions of pesos in public funds over the past 3 years. According to Lumagi, the ongoing tax fraud audit is no longer limited to contractors alone, but now extends to individuals mentioned during Senate and House hearings.
Yan, nagsimula na rin tayo, no? Hindi lamang tayo naglilimit dito sa investigation natin sa mga contractors, kundi na rin sa mga nababanggit na mga personalities dito sa mga hearings.
The BIR clarified that it cannot yet provide a definite timeline for the release of audit results concerning these government contractors. Lumagi has not given a timeline for the release of results as it largely depends on the cooperation of the contractors and other government agencies involved. He also discussed the legal limitations on immediately disclosing audit findings. Under Section 270 of the National Internal Revenue Code, there are restrictions on revealing tax-related information. However, such findings can be submitted to legislators and presented in executive session if necessary.
Pero sila pwede nilang isa publiko yan at once na nakapagsampa na rin tayo ng kaso, kung meron man tayong makitang findings ng criminal case or criminal liability, magsasampa tayo ng kasong kriminal sa Department of Justice and once na nasampa na yan ay isa publiko na ang resulta ng aming pag-audit. Of course, pwede rin nating ilabas yan kung may pahintulot ang mismong contractor na in-audit natin.
For God and for my beloved country, the Philippines, this has been Cresceline Catarong, SMNI News.
In sports, Germany and Finland have both advanced to the semifinals of the FIBA Eurobasket 2025 after defeating Slovenia and Georgia. Meanwhile, Filipina tennis star Alex Ayala climbs to a career-high world number 55 in the WTA rankings, following her title win in Guadalajara and a dominant run at the Sao Paulo Open. Here's Carlo de la Peña for the details.
Germany secured its Final Four slot in the FIBA Eurobasket 2025 with an 89-76 victory over Slovenia. Slovenia controlled the first quarter with a 21-32 lead, but Germany responded with an 8-2 run in the second and pulled ahead in the final stretch. Franz Wagner, Dennis Schroeder, and Daniel Thies powered the win, marking Germany's second straight semifinals appearance. In another quarterfinal, Finland made history by reaching the Eurobasket semifinals for the first time. After beating Serbia in the round of 16, they toppled Georgia 93-79, led by Mikael Hiantunen with 19 points and NBA star Lauri Markkanen with 17. The semifinals will be played on September 12 in Riga, Latvia, with the championship set for September 14. Meanwhile, in tennis, after a string of victories, Filipina tennis player Alex Ayala has once again risen in the WTA singles world rankings. From rank 61, she climbed to rank 55 in the live rankings, with expectations that she could go even higher in her upcoming matches. Following her championship run at the Guadalajara Open last week, Ayala continues her strong showing at the Sao Paulo Open. In the first two rounds, she defeated Yasmin Mansouri of France and Julia Riera of Argentina. Ayala is set to face Janice Chen of Indonesia in the quarterfinals, who also made history at the recent US Open as the first Indonesian player to reach the second round of the women's singles main draw. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Carlo de la Peña bringing you the latest sports news.
For today's showbiz update, The Weeknd is still on as he officially announces his 2026 tour, an extension of his record-breaking years-long run of After Hours Till Dawn tour. Meanwhile, Julie Andrews has won an Emmy for Outstanding Voice-Over Performance, honored from her narration as a Lady Whistledown in Netflix's Bridgerton. Let's find out more from Andrea Santos.
Weeknd is turning up the heat in 2026 as he extends his long-running After Hours Till Dawn stadium tour with new dates lined up across Latin America and Europe, with guest performers to rock the stage. The global superstar kicks off the tour on April 20, 2026 in Mexico City, before heading to Brazil, France, the Netherlands, Italy, Germany, Sweden, the UK, Ireland, and Spain. The run will spotlight three of his most celebrated works After Hours in 2020, Dawn FM in 2022, and his latest release this year, Hurry Up Tomorrow. Latin America's show will feature Brazilian star Anitta, while Playboy Carti join as opener in Europe. Highlights include back-to-back nights At Wembley Stadium in London on August 14 and 15, a huge Paris show at Stade de France on July 10, and a grand finale in Madrid on August 30. With record-breaking tours already under his belt, The Weeknd continues to push the boundaries of live entertainment, further solidifying his status as one of the most influential and dynamic performers. Julie Andrews has won another Emmy, this time for her voice work as Lady Whistledown in Bridgerton. At 89, Julie Andrews triumphed after 3 previous nominations for her role as the mysterious Lady Whistledown, whose sharp-witted commentary has been central to Bridgerton's success since the show debuted in 2020. Her winning performance came into the season 3 finale Into the Light, where her narration once again captivated audiences and critics. Though absent from the ceremony, her award was accepted by actor Craig Robinson, earning a standing ovation. This marks Andrews' 3rd career Emmy, joining her earlier wins for the Julie Andrews Hour in 1973 in Broadway, the American musical in 2005. With an Oscar and multiple Grammys already to her name, Andrews continued to shine, with Bridgerton still dominating Netflix charts. The British actress was born in Surrey, England, known for her 4-octave singing voice, which made her earn major awards in different roles in films and musical theater. Her voice as Lady Whistledown remains an essential part of the show's charm and intrigue. This is Andrea Santos, your citizen correspondent, bringing you the latest showbuzz.
And before we end, may be inspired with the words of the sun. And as we keep track of the countdown, there's only 104 days left before Christmas. And that's all for this edition of Newsline World. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I am Franco Baranda. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.